Coming up on the Rockbridge Report.
Yeah, he did not threaten me verbally, no ma'am.
The man who shot Ahmaud Arbery testified again today. We have footage from his testimony. And Lexington residents are continuing to try and change Confederate street names. We'll tell you which streets residents almost voted to change it. And what's next? Kyle Rittenhouse's defense made their second request for a mistrial. We'll have details on the reasoning. And a weather flip-flop on the way. Drew Thompson has the forecast. All that and more, next on the Rockbridge Report.
Live from the campus of Washington and Lee University with news from Rockbridge County, this is the Rockbridge Report.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Rockbridge Report. I'm Shauna Muckle. Later on I'll be joined by Jin Nee, Drew Thompson's weather, and James Laverty's sports. The man who shot Ahmaud Arbery in February 2020 took the stand for a second day in a row today. Defendant Travis McMichael admitted that he wasn't under any threat.
And at this point in time, when you first see him on Burford, he's not reaching into his pockets.
No ma'am, not running, no ma'am.
And he never yelled at you guys?
No ma'am.
Never threatened you at all?
No ma'am.
Never brandished any weapons?
Sorry, Your Honor, he's trying to finish his answer.
Yeah, he did not threaten me verbally, no ma'am.
All right. Didn't brandish any weapons?
No ma'am.
Didn't pull out any guns?
No ma'am.
Didn't pull out any knife?
No ma'am.
Never reached for anything, did he?
No.
He just ran.
Yes, he was just running.
A resident of the neighborhood where Arbery was shot also testified today. The National Action Network scheduled a march for this afternoon with local faith leaders outside the courthouse to support the Arbery family. Lawyers on both sides are giving closing arguments in the Unite the Right trial today in Charlottesville. The 9 plaintiffs' attorneys said that 24 white nationalists, quote, planned, executed, and then celebrated racially motivated violence that killed 1 counter-protester and injured dozens more. They showed the jury dozens of text messages, chat room exchanges, and social media postings by the rally's main planners. Some were filled with racist phrases and talk of cracking skulls of anti-racist counter-protesters. Lawyers for defendants have said the messages were protected by the First Amendment. The national debate over history versus inclusion continues in the city of Lexington. City Council polled the residents of Confederate Circle about changing the street name. Fewer than 75% of residents were in favor to do so, which is the council's benchmark needed to change the name. Reporter Ian Dardany has the story.
The vote was 7-5 in favor of changing the street name. However, that number does not meet the 75% threshold needed to change the name. City Council member Charles Alligood, who lives right next to Confederate Circle, acknowledges changing the name is a complicated issue.
They might be in agreement in principle, but they didn't want the hassle, and because of the hassle, they would opt for maintaining the status quo.
A fee of $400 would be split amongst residents to change the name. However, the bigger obstacle seems to be the inconvenience of changing the home address across all correspondence. Alligood says the lone resident of Evergreen Place, which recently changed its name from New Marketplace, expressed similar reservations.
Even that property owner recently sent a letter to the city council saying that it was way more trouble than he expected.
While some residents don't want to deal with the hassle, others are more adamant about keeping the name for history's sake. In the words of one resident of the street who chose to remain anonymous, "It's a disgrace. They are trying to tear down history brick by brick. You can't erase history. It is there for a purpose, to teach us the right and wrong things to do." Tom Oxentine lives on the corner of Confederate Circle and Enfield Road and has a different take.
Well, I think a lot of people, particularly people of color, find it offensive, and I can understand that. And if we want, I want everybody to pay taxes. I got to pay taxes, and I don't want people turned off to this town because of something that happened a long time ago.
Alligood finds the survey outcome disheartening, but says it was a good test run to get a sense on how residents of Lexington feel about renaming streets involving Confederate names.
There's strong feelings still in this area about maintaining street names, and the survey that we did at 2 a member of City Council, myself and one other, on Confederate, was done to really check to see what the sentiment was among people who lived on a very obviously named Confederate name. Confederate Circle can't be any more obvious.
Alligood would like to see the benchmark to change street names lowered from 75% in order to spark more change around Lexington. It is a matter he believes the City Council should review soon. But for the foreseeable future, Confederate Circle and other controversial street names will likely remain the same. Live at Confederate Circle, I'm Ian Dardney with the Rockbridge Report.
Kyle Rittenhouse's defense requested a mistrial during the third day of jury deliberations today. This comes after a jury request yesterday to re-watch video evidence that included drone footage of Rittenhouse pointing his gun. The prosecutors used the video to undermine Rittenhouse's self-defense claim and portray him as the instigator in the bloodshed in Kenosha in the summer of 2020. The defense team said yesterday that it had received an inferior copy of the potentially critical video from prosecutors. If Rittenhouse is acquitted, the video dispute won't matter, but if he is found guilty, a mistrial ruling would essentially void the verdict. The White House is investing big in a new COVID treatment. President Biden announced today his administration bought 10 million courses of Pfizer's experimental antiviral pill. It's not approved by the Food and Drug Administration yet, but early data from Pfizer shows it can reduce hospitalizations and deaths by 89% in COVID patients if they get it within 3 days of showing symptoms. Biden says delivery of the medication could start by the end of the year and will be easily accessible and free to anyone who needs it. The news comes as COVID cases tick up in about half of the U.S. According to Dr. Fauci, the number of hospitalizations of people who have been vaccinated but not received booster shots is also rising. So far, more than 31 million fully vaccinated adults have gotten the booster. Coming up on the Rockbridge Report, Rockbridge area schools are lacking in teacher diversity. We'll tell you just how bad it is and what the NAACP is doing to combat it.
Hi, I'm Drew Thompson. Today started off nice and warm, but then the wind started blowing and temperatures dropped. Drastically lower temperatures the next few days. Stay tuned for the full forecast.
And Thanksgiving is expected to be more expensive than ever for your turkey and your gas. We have details on what it'll cost and how to make the holiday as stress-free as it can be. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Jin Nee. Gas, rental cars, and hotels are all more expensive right now, just as more Americans get ready to drive to their Thanksgiving destinations. Here's a closer look at the higher costs and the best time to hit the road.
This Thanksgiving, brace yourself for possible pre-pandemic holiday highway congestion.
You're going to be sitting in that old-fashioned traffic again.
With inflation, supply shortages, and massive demand, as more families gather in person, experts warn traveling to your destination will cost you more patience and more money.
So it's more, but as we've always discovered, no matter how much gasoline prices are, people are still going to take that trip. They'll just budget along the way. Maybe they won't be showing up at Thanksgiving dinner with a really big pie, might be a smaller pie.
The national average of gas is $3.41 per gallon. According to AAA, that's more than $1 higher than last holiday season. And if you're renting a car, recent data from the Labor Department shows rental car prices increased 42% this calendar year. No relief if you are going to fly to your destination either. From staffing shortages to possible flight cancellations, airlines are expecting challenges during the busiest travel season of the year.
And so we're seeing a lot of scrambling by the airlines, and it's going to continue heading into the holiday season.
Hotel rates are also up. According to AAA, mid-range hotel rates increased about 39%. And while you may not be able to avoid the higher prices on your road trip, experts say a bit of flexibility can save you a lot of time.
Leave early. If you can leave Wednesday before noon, that's great. Or one of the best travel days, if you're only going kind of a close-in trip, leave Thanksgiving morning.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
AAA estimates more than 53.4 million Americans are expected to travel this Thanksgiving. That's up 13% compared with last year. About 90% of those travelers are expected to drive. And something else a lot of folks won't be thankful for this Thanksgiving, the cost of dinner. The average price of turkey and all the fixins is expected to be about 14% higher than last year. That's according to the Farm Bureau's 36th annual survey. The cost of the bird alone is up 24% from last year. So what's the reason for the rise? If you guessed supply chain issues, you're right. There is difficulty predicting demand because of COVID and high global demand for food, particularly meat. A class of Washington and Lee law students has teamed up with the Walker program and the Vincent and Elkins law firm to help launch local businesses. The project follows the mission of the Walker program to fund and support businesses started by people of color. It has already funded 4 businesses and will soon announce 3 more. The law students are part of Professor Carlos Chapman's Mergers and Acquisitions class, which was recently redesigned to be a community learning initiative. Read Simona Radova's full story on our website. In both Rockbridge County and Lexington City schools, there are no teachers of color. Advocates for recruiting more teachers of color stress that students learn better and are better prepared for the real world when they have diverse classroom leaders. As Brianna Hatch reports, the local chapter of the NAACP is working to raise awareness and implement incentives for teachers of color, but they have seen little success in their efforts so far.
The 2020 census reported that Lexington's population is nearly 21% residents of color, and in Rockbridge County, 8.1% of the population identifies as non-white. But Rockbridge NAACP President Reginald Early says there are no teachers of color in either school district. 2 black paraprofessionals are employed in Lexington, but Early says that is not enough.
We don't want our kids to just see black people in subordinate positions. We want them to see, as well as the white kids, to see people of color in positions of authority.
Advocates for change agree that the main problem is recruitment. NAACP Education Committee Chair Lisa Tracy says the local area itself is a barrier to attracting diverse teachers.
But for educators of color, this is a fairly rural area, and it can be perceived as being isolated.
Early said school cooperation is another barrier.
We don't think that they are putting forth an intentional effort to hire educators of color.
Chief Business Officer of Rockbridge County Schools, Jason Kirby, said increasing diversity is a priority in the district, but Rockbridge has a limited hiring pool.
And our general population in this area is not as diverse as it may be in some other more urban areas.
Kirby said administrators at Rockbridge County Schools are reaching out to historically black colleges and universities as recruitment sources. Early also hopes the newly created Irma Thompson Educational Fund will incentivize teachers of color to move to the area. The $19,000 fund offers grants of up to $3,000 to help with moving and other transitional expenses. But the organization is also actively raising money to hire a consultant from Charlottesville to help implement a program to hire more teachers of color in the local schools. For the Rockbridge Report, I'm Brianna Hatch.
More than 20 public school districts across the nation are extending their Thanksgiving breaks and prioritizing mental health. Districts in at least 6 different states have amended their schedules to include wellness days coming up this school year. Those states include here in Virginia, Florida, North Carolina, Maryland, Missouri, and Kansas. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, it is estimated that in 2007, up to 1 out of 5 children living in the United States experienced a mental disorder in a given year. Coming up next on the Rockbridge Report. A historic lunar eclipse is happening tonight. We'll tell you what makes it so special and what you can expect to see. And later on in the newscast, the supply chain issues don't stop. We have a look at how some small businesses are combating it with the rush for holiday shopping. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Rockbridge Report. I'm Drew Thompson. You can view a historic event by looking into the night sky tonight, but you may have to give up some sleep to see it. The longest partial lunar eclipse in nearly 600 years will happen late tonight into Friday morning. It's expected to last nearly 3.5 hours and is really close to a full eclipse. NASA says it will cover more than 97% of the moon. It can be seen from anywhere in the country as long as skies are clear. A lunar eclipse happens when the Earth passes between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow over the moon. And we're back with a live shot of a Lexington neighborhood. While there might be a lunar eclipse tonight, there was no solar eclipse today in Lexington. Sunny to start off the day until clouds rolled in the afternoon. Our high today 75, the low 33. Barometric pressure falling to just above 30 inches of mercury. Wind speed picking up to 10 miles per hour. And the humidity is standing at 46%. Radar shows a storm system moving in from the west, and we can expect that rain this evening. A whole gamut of conditions across the region today, from rainy in Roanoke to cloudy to smidgens of sun. Temperatures generally in the upper 60s into the 70s, 75 degrees in Charlottesville, 75 degrees in Lynchburg, and 68 degrees in Buena Vista. And the next 5 days shaping up like this for you. Friday and Saturday sunny with highs in the upper 40s, down into the 20s for the nights. Sunday, cloudy with some warmer temperatures, but Monday and Tuesday, sunny again, highs down into the 40s, and temperatures, again, very cold in the night. Coming up next on the Rockbridge Report, with high school and college teams in playoffs and Super Bowl rematches coming up, sports anchor James Laverty has you covered with everything football. And the White House Christmas tree is on its way. We'll show you the happy farm and town it's in who have the honor of supplying it. We'll be back after the break.
Welcome back. Retailers anticipate record holiday sales ahead in the face of concerns about the supply chain. But the boom may not be as merry for small retailers as it is for the big box giants. Karen Kaifa introduces us to two small business owners bracing for a challenging holiday rush.
At Old Town Books in Alexandria, Virginia.
As you can tell, it's like a little bit hard to get around.
Holiday supply chain concerns have shaped Allie Kirkpatrick's plans for months.
My vendors were sending me warnings as early as April of this year.
Like other small business owners who weathered the depths of the COVID-19 economy, she is bracing for how a blockbuster holiday sales outlook will collide with inflation, labor shortages, and goods moving slower to shelves.
I pull the laptop out after the kids are in bed, after bath time and stuff, and I think every small business owner does.
Competition with giants like Amazon, Walmart, and Target is always complicated for small sellers.
I can't compete with Amazon or some other super high volume suppliers. I don't buy 20,000 copies of a book, and I can't negotiate for that lower price.
But the gap may seem wider right now. Major retailers ramped up e-commerce and soared to record pandemic profits and are spending big to charter ships, hire personnel, and circumvent supply chain bottlenecks in a way Yinny Binny Baby owner Soyini George cannot. After 7 years of crafting and selling, George had barely opened this retail store in Washington, D.C. in 2020.
Literally 2 weeks later, I had to shut down because of COVID. So yeah, it was a very strange beginning.
George sells a mix of handmade children's accessories adorned with her illustrations, as well as toys and books.
There's some things I cannot reorder that they're out of stock on.
Working largely alone with help from her daughter, she bought what she could early.
I spent the entire time period from April to now just buying as much inventory as I could get to make sure that I was well stocked during that time period and for the holidays.
Kirkpatrick rented an annex for extra inventory shipping and receiving. Stress on staff is another worry should delays mount or items run short.
I'm just hoping that we are going to communicate that well enough and that our customer knows that, it's not necessarily us dropping the ball, that it's just kind of the situation we're in.
Since they lean on the small, personal experience as something the big retailers can't buy or sell. In Washington, I'm Karen Kaifa.
Hi, I'm James Laverty, and from Lexington to Atlanta, we got a lot of football to discuss. The Rockbridge County High School football team had an unceremonious end to their season as they fell to Brookville 57-12 in the first round of the playoffs. This was the 5th consecutive season that the Wildcats have made the playoffs under Coach Mark Poston, but they finished the season with 4 consecutive losses. And the Perry McClure Fighting Blues fought back after an early 6-0 deficit, but they went on to win 36-8. John Snyder led the way again, rushing for 213 yards on 33 carries. The junior running back has rushed for 1,572 yards on the season and 25 touchdowns. The Blues will play Giles on the road tomorrow in the semifinals. And the Washington and Lee football team saw its 8-game winning streak come to an end on Saturday as they lost to Shenandoah 14-6. The Generals took an early 6-0 lead off a 44-yard touchdown run by Alex Wirtz, but that would be it for them as Shenandoah would score the next 2 touchdowns unanswered. The team struggled without a punter and a kicker. Washington and Lee returns to action on Saturday in the opening round of the NCAA Division III tournament. They unfortunately had a really tough draw as they play the University of Mount Union, a Division III powerhouse. And it's a rematch that football fans north of Connecticut cherish, as the New England Patriots travel to Atlanta for a Super Bowl 51 rematch with the Atlanta Falcons. The 6-4 Patriots are coming off of a dominating 45-7 rout of the Cleveland Browns, while the 4-5 Falcons are coming off an ugly 43-3 loss against the Dallas Cowboys. For Patriots fans, it's a great reminder of their historic 28-3 comeback now almost 5 years ago. But the team is looking ahead with rookie quarterback Mac Jones, who is now in contention for Rookie of the Year. New England comes into tonight winning 4 straight and once again looking like very serious contenders in the AFC. Starting running back Damian Harris returns after missing last week with a concussion, and the game kicks off at 8:20. And with the holidays right around the corner, we'll leave you with this. The White House is about to get its Christmas tree, but first it has to get there. It's coming from North Carolina and a very proud tree farm where the entire town is celebrating. Ron Lee has the story.
Well, that's what we grew it for.
With very little pomp and circumstance, it was time to drop this tree to the deck. This is a moment long time coming from the family who owns this farm.
That's just a top pinnacle in your life.
Rusty Estes has been growing Christmas trees on the side of the mountain here in Ashe County for decades, but this day was pretty special.
You cannot use words to describe how you feel.
His farm and his tree beat out not only every grower in North Carolina, but growers in 33 other states. After winning, representatives from the president's staff came down to pick out the perfect tree, this 30-year-old 20-foot Fraser fir, which is native to the area.
Well, it's a huge honor for our family. It's a huge honor.
It'll be hauled up in a refrigerated trailer before being presented to the First Lady. The date and time so secret, we can't even release it.
So it's a wonderful day for us.
But before even heading to D.C., it made a stop in the center of town in front of dozens and dozens of people. This guy didn't even get top billing.
We grow the Cadillac of Christmas trees.
Plenty of speeches and celebrations, knowing this isn't about one family or one farm, but a little hometown pride.
I guess we grow the best trees.
That's all for today's edition of the Rockbridge Report. Keep up to date on more regional news on our website, rockbridgereport.wlu.edu. We'll be back after Thanksgiving for our next Tuesday live update. Thanks for joining us and have a good holiday.